What's up guys, welcome to Gamers Therapy. This morning Sony Pictures Entertainment dropped the second trailer for Venom and it looks good. It looks as good as a summer popcorn flick with a darker tone compared to the normal superhero movies that grace our cinema screens. The fact that the movie's coming out in October is irrelevant. Unfortunately, the tone that the trailer conveys doesn't really gel well with the essence of who Venom as a character really is. Now, from what I remember, Eddie Brock worked at a few newspaper agencies as a photographer, journalist before winding up at the Daily Bugle. An instant rivalry came into fruition when Peter Parker, also known as Spider-Man for those who live under a rock, for lack of a better expression, pissed Brock off because of Peter's amazing, get it, pictures of Spider-Man, and always got the scoops on big events. Obviously, Peter was able to get these shots as he was Spider-Man. Plus, again, referencing the 90s show, anytime Brock had a legitimate scoop that could push his career forward, regardless of how exploitative it would be, Spider-Man would swoop in, not intentionally to harm Brock's career, just doing the right thing, and save the day. An example of this would be in the first episode of the 90s show Night of the Lizard. In this episode, Dr. Kurt Connors accidentally turns himself into the lizard in an attempt to grow his arm back. Peter encounters the lizard at ESU University where he studies. Not knowing that Connors is the lizard, he starts to investigate, and the best person to ask would be Dr. Kurt Connors himself. Upon investigation, he discovers that it was Dr. Kurt Connors who was in fact the lizard. This information is revealed by Kurt's wife after a battle with the lizard outside their residence. However, at the same time, Eddie Brock also knew that Kurt would be the right person asked due to Jameson sending Peter there, so he was in the area. Brock was actually the reason the fight broke out, as the lizard had spotted him. After the battle, he overheard Kurt's wife telling Spider-Man that Kurt was the lizard and got heavily excited, as this would be the break that he needed for his career. Unfortunately for Brock, Spider-Man discovered him hiding and webbed him to a lamppost in order to buy Connors some time, so that Spider-Man could turn the lizard back into Connors again in an attempt to save his life, his reputation, and his family. This, as would be expected, started to fuel hatred towards Spider-Man. And remember, Brock already had a feud with Peter Parker as well. This is just one example. In the next two episodes, Brock had somewhat allianced himself with Norman Osborn and Spencer Smythe to capture Spider-Man because he was a criminal, allegedly. And his big scoop would be to unmask Spider-Man after his capture to the world. That didn't go according to plan. Spider-Man saved the day and Brock ended up getting fired from the Bugle, which just added more fuel to the already blazing fire of Brock's hatred towards Spider-Man. Reminder that Brock still had this competitive rivalry against Peter Parker. Now, in the 90s show, the alien symbiote came from a rock that was located on an asteroid. John Jameson, J. Jonah Jameson's son, brought the rock dubbed Prometheus X back to Earth. Things get hairy though when the symbiote that was attached to the rock starts freaking out and tries to bond with John while he's attempting to land the space shuttle. The bonding doesn't work as the shuttle is making copious amounts of noise and John was wearing a spacesuit at the same time. The shuttle then crashes on the George Washington Bridge. Spider-Man swings in to save the day and after a battle with the Rhino, inadvertently obtains the alien symbiote. Jameson, on the false words of Eddie Brock, blames Spider-Man for stealing something from the shuttle and offers a reward for the capture of the wall crawler. Spider-Man, Peter Parker start getting very frustrated at this development. Bringing the alien symbiote back to his home unknowingly, Peter has a feverish nightmare, being torn, for lack of a better description, between the light side of Spider-Man and the dark side of Spider-Man. Good and evil, yin and yang, that kind of thing. The symbiote wins and swallows Peter, and when he awakes he finds himself hanging upside down in the middle of the city, sporting a super sleek black suit. The suit is able to augment all of Spider-Man's powers, increasing his speed, strength, and agility. It also amplifies his anger and frustration though, causing him to lash out. The suit also reacts to threats independently of Spider-Man's thoughts or Spider-Sense. For example, when Spider-Man doesn't understand why sonic vibrations weaken the suit and is almost downed, the suit fires a tentacle of its own accord to remove itself from the danger, taking Spider-Man with it. This is where Spider-Man starts to realize that the suit is actually a life form, and upon further investigation with the assistance of Dr. Kurt Connors, understands that the symbiote needs to bond with the host and in time will try and take over the host's mind. The alien symbiote is a vicious creature. Let's back up a little. Eddie Brock was rehired by J. Jonah Jameson after Brock told Jameson that he had pictures of Spider-Man stealing something from the shuttle, when instead it was the Rhino who broke into the shuttle to steal the Prometheus X for the Kingpin. Spider-Man's name is cleared when John Jameson, who is recovering in the hospital after the shuttle crash, reveals to Jameson that there was a man in a Rhino costume. Jameson fires Brock on the spot for withholding this information. Brock, now wanting to even the score more, tries to take down Spider-Man during a confrontation at a church with the Shocker and Rhino. Obviously, Brock is an idiot as he has no superpowers and gets webbed up, left suspended under the church bell. With Spider-Man's rage amplified and him almost killing the Rhino and Shocker in battle, Peter tries to remove the suit before it takes over completely. Having the dramatic conclusion taking place in a church, Peter uses the church bell to create a loud noise, which the suit hates, and pries himself free. The suit retreats into the cracks of the floor and falls all over Eddie Brock, turning him into Venom. Brock and the symbiote were practically made for each other now. The suit actually taking issue with Spider-Man due to him rejecting and forcefully removing it. Eddie Brock hates Spider-Man for always indirectly interfering with his career, and Peter Parker because Parker always got lucky with the Spider-Man shots and scoops that he obtained at the Bugle. Due to Marvel being able to utilize Spider-Man in the MCU, Sony currently cannot use the MCU's version of the character, at least to my understanding. This will cause confusion among MCU fans, and if Venom is part of that universe, which he isn't, or at least not currently, but plans can change. Portraying Venom's first solo outing and origin story without Spider-Man is a very bold and risky move on Sony's part. I'm not saying they shouldn't do it, but I think based on the premise that Spider-Man is somehow not involved in Venom's origin is going to anger more of the hardcore fans of Spider-Man and Venom. Personally, I don't understand how they're going to do it. Venom as a character grew from his encounters with Spider-Man that ultimately led to him becoming an anti-hero. Not to mention that all of his traits and abilities come directly from Spider-Man. So in this live version of Venom, does Venom web swing? Does he have the abilities of a spider? Can he stick to walls? And if he can, how did he obtain these abilities without Spider-Man being involved in his origin story? There is also no blood. Venom was bloody brutal. I don't think you can make a film of Venom and not make it R-rated. And it seems to me that Sony's trying to hit a balance between younger teenagers and adults. Unfortunately, this doesn't work, and they should know this considering the huge success of Deadpool. To me, you either go all in on a character of this caliber or you don't do it at all. A few tweaks here and there maybe is fine, but something that changes the core of that character or how the character acts is a no-no. The Venom I know made me scared, made me wonder if Spider-Man would get away alive. Venom was never afraid to cross the line, and that made me feel alive, uncomfortable even. I quite enjoyed the 90s show's origin of Eddie Brock because if I step back from the show and look at Brock as a person, he is just a guy who is trying to get his life to mean something. Yes, he can be a bit of a shithead in the process, but in the realm of journalistic competition, who wouldn't be doing that? Having his career tarnished by Spider-Man, whether directly or indirectly, is irrelevant. His career still got tarnished, and as a result, led him down this path. Brock slipped into depression. I can easily relate. Your whole life is falling apart. Every opportunity you receive gets taken away by one man. There's always this one guy that is better than you in the workplace when you're trying to prove yourself, and no matter your efforts, you always get looked over. Who can't relate to that? This version of Venom doesn't have the Eddie Brock or Venom character that I personally love. I'm not saying I won't go see it, I probably will, but I'm honestly not expecting to enjoy it as many others might, and that's okay. I always hope to be proven wrong when it comes to superhero movies. It is important to note that this isn't a movie. This is, of course, just a trailer and my opinion on the trailer from what I'm seeing. And changes can and hopefully will be made to the final film. So I'll ask you yet again, is this the Venom movie you really want?